With Gen AI, although there will certainly be successes in integrating with existing systems and existing approaches and processes, one of the things that I'm a big advocate for is sort of thinking from scratch. We literally shut it down. We pulled the plugs out of the servers.
Today we have a story that reflects how the best leaders know when to pivot and when to pull the plug and start over. Ryan Fox, CTO of Super.com, literally shut down the old systems, threw out years of work, and rebuilt the company around an AI-first mindset. This is one of the most direct explanations we've heard about what it really takes to make AI work inside a fast-growing company.
The interesting thing was when sort of the entire industry shifted, in 2022 timeline with OpenAI and what they sort of introduced to the world, we had to throw everything else out. It was just a completely new model, a new approach, and probably 10x better of what had been previously created.
When you say you had to throw everything out, there's a lot of business owners today that are looking at integrating generative AI into their platforms, but retrofitting a lot of legacy tech. And so when you're throwing everything out, like, were you really throwing everything out, burn it to the ground, start over? I mean, maybe your data stayed the same, but your infrastructure changed. Is that a fair statement?
We literally shut it down. We pulled the plugs out of the servers that operated it. And part of it is because I think it applies this example specifically, but I think a little bit more broadly too. With Gen AI, although there will certainly be successes in integrating with existing systems and existing approaches and processes, I think it's actually to some degree a missed opportunity to only see it in that way. And one of the things that I'm a big advocate for is sort of thinking from scratch. So much of how and it relates to this specific problem, but also so many other things that we do as a business with product development that we do. So we have a lot of engineers, a lot of product managers, designers, QA folks, et cetera, that ultimately are able to craft and evolve our product. And we've spun out in our organization what we call an incubation hub. It's an area of the company allocated to really finding new product market fits and new integrations into our membership program. Alongside those new integrations, what I've challenged the team and sort of set up within our organization is that they're going to come up with an AI-first product development lifecycle. So my challenge to them is forget everything that you know, forget every way of working, every way you've traditionally learned over the past 20 plus years of how you develop software and how you release it to users, and let's throw it all out and start from scratch. Now you have these new tools of today. So what does that look like for generating an MVP or a minimally viable product? How quickly can we do that? What does it look like when you're going from the MVP to a more scaled product? And what are the warnings, or what can we sort of learn through that process and how to best do it? What does the relationship look like between different job functions? For instance, our designers can now use tools to generate code, whereas before you have a designer handing off a design for an engineer to ultimately implement. Now that interface is not necessarily exactly at that boundary anymore. We have to rethink not only like what tools we use, but the interaction modes between different job functions and skill sets. And I think that it's very empowering when you can just throw everything else out and sort of start over. And what we found is that it can be a more effective model than trying to retrofit things bit by bit in all of our existing teams.
I think it's pretty insightful and brave, honestly. I have a hard time throwing anything away. So, especially if you've spent multiple millions of dollars creating this infrastructure, that had to be a hard thing to do. But it's definitely a clarion call for people to reflect on. You're building something completely new. Obviously, AI is the rise of the solopreneur, right? When I think about things like go-to-market, for example, the 3 and 4 roles that used to comprise of what did it take to go to market, whether it was developing the user interface or your marketing team. Is this what you're seeing in the construction of your company as well as across all companies? I mean, you're seeing that consolidation and discipline, or are you seeing a different kind of consolidation? And if so, what would you tell users about how to structure their companies as they're poising themselves to be AI ready?
I think there's 2 competing things happening. I think both are really interesting. So on the one hand, the whole solopreneur pathway, I think that the time to go to market to get an MVP out is drastically reduced by leveraging AI. And I think that you're starting to see a lot of new companies spin up all the time and be amazed by how quickly they got from 0 to an MVP and with how few people they were able to do it. I think that the second factor is that the limiting factor for many companies, it's really like you've got a product backlog that's so long and you only have a certain finite number of resources to execute on that backlog. I think from that lens, what AI is enabling is us to execute on more of that backlog faster. Because our ambition is so far ahead of our actual resourcing, for us, we are just executing more of the backlog, and we are actually still hiring developers and team members and growing in that way too, because the ambition so far exceeds our actual capacity to execute on it.
Make sure you're subscribed to Mind the Machine podcast, like the video, and leave a comment letting us know what you thought.